Okay, so we pick up again in 2 Kings 19, 8 to 37 today. In the previous chapters, the kingdom of Israel has come to an end. They've been taken into exile for their consistent wickedness. Remember that the northern kingdom, right from the start, was based on Jeroboam's perversion of the worship of God, and none of the kings improved that. Some of them took it worse into Baal worship, some of them brought it back that far, but it never improved, and eventually they were overtaken by Assyria and taken out of the land into captivity, just as God had promised back in the book of Deuteronomy at the time of Moses. We find ourselves now in the southern kingdom and focusing on them, and Hezekiah is on the throne, but they are under pressure. Sennacherib has been surrounding them and threatening them, and how are they going to deal with this? When the field commander heard that the king of Assyria had left Lachish, he withdrew and found the king fighting against Libnah. Now Sennacherib received a report from Tirhakah, the king of Cush, that Tirhakah, the king of Cush, was marching out to fight against him. So he again sent messengers to Hezekiah with this word: "Say to Hezekiah, king of Judah, do not let the God you depend on deceive you when he says, Jerusalem will not be given into the hands of the king of Assyria." So Assyria has been invading Judah, and Jerusalem's under threat. But now he's heard that another king is having a go, and so he's pulling back. But he's sending a message to Hezekiah saying, "Don't think that this is your God rescuing you. Don't be so daft. Surely you've heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all the countries, destroying them completely. And will you be delivered? Did the gods of the nations that were destroyed by my predecessors deliver them, the gods of Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, and the people of Eden who were in Tel Assar? Where is the king of Hamath or the king of Arpad? Where are the kings of Lair, Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ivah?" Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it. Then he went up to the temple of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. It's interesting, isn't it? He doesn't cave under it. He doesn't just dismiss it in an act of bold faith. He takes it up to the Lord and lays it out before him. This is how his faith is working. He is turning to the Lord with this letter. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, "Lord, the God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth." So as he begins his prayer, he lifts his eyes in praise to the God of heaven, the God who has made everything, to give him the praise that is due his name, but also as he does so, it helps Hezekiah come to terms with what is happening. He's praising the Creator God, who's over all the kingdoms of the earth. "Give ear, Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, Lord, and see. Listen to the words Sennacherib has sent to ridicule the living God. Is it true, Lord, that the Assyrian kings have laid waste these nations and their lands? They have thrown their gods into the fire and destroyed them, for they were not gods, but only wood and stone fashioned by human hands. Now, Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord, are God." So as Hezekiah now prays for God to intervene, to deal with Sennacherib's ridiculing of the true and living God, Sennacherib has said, do you think your God will rescue you? It didn't work for any of the other nations. Hezekiah is acknowledging that the gods of the other nations were just wood and stone. They were idols. They were made up gods. And he calls on the true and living God now to take this moment to let everybody know that he alone is God. Notice in all of this that Hezekiah's direction in praying is for the glory of God. It's not just for the rescue of Israel. Clearly that's going to happen, but he wants to see God's name glorified and honoured. "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." That is very much the way that Hezekiah is praying here. Then Isaiah, son of Amoz, sent a message to Hezekiah. "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I have heard your prayer concerning Sennacherib, king of Assyria. This is the word that the Lord has spoken against him. Virgin daughter Zion despises you and mocks you. Daughter Jerusalem tosses her head as you flee. Who is it you have ridiculed and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride? Against the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have ridiculed the Lord, and you have said, with my many chariots I have ascended the heights of the mountains, the utmost heights of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars, the choicest of its junipers. I have reached its remotest parts, the finest of its forests. I have dug wells in foreign lands and drunk the water there. With the soles of my feet I have dried up all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard? Long ago I ordained it. In the days of old I planned it. Now I've brought it to pass, that you have turned fortified cities into piles of stone. Their people drained of power are dismayed and put to shame. They're like plants in the field, like tender green shoots, like grass sprouting on the roof, scorched before it grows up. But I know where you are and when you come and go, and how you rage against me. Because you rage against me, and because your insolence has reached my ears, I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I will make you return by the way you came. This will be the sign for you, Hezekiah. This year you will eat what grows by itself, and the second year what springs from that. But in the third year sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. Once more a remnant of the kingdom of Judah will take root below and bear fruit above. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Therefore this is what the Lord says concerning the king of Assyria. He will not enter this city, or shoot an arrow here. He will not come before it with shield, or build a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came he will return. He will not enter this city, declares the Lord. I will defend this city and save it, for my sake and for the sake of David my servant. That night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, broke camp and withdrew. He returned to Nineveh and stayed there. One day, while he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adrammelech and Sharezer killed him with a sword, and they escaped to the land of Ararat. And Esarhaddon his son succeeded him as king. So here is Sennacherib boasting about what he's going to do and saying to Hezekiah, do you think your God will protect you? None of the other gods have managed that. Hezekiah comes and brings the letter before the Lord, prays to God as God of heaven, and asks that he would glorify his name. And Isaiah the prophet brings God's response, and God's response is to the king of Assyria, you've conquered all these nations, yeah, of course you have, I planned it, but your insolence against me now is going to bring you to an end. I will bring you to an end. You're not going to lay a siege against Jerusalem. You're not going to shoot an arrow here. For all your cockiness and for all your certainty and for all the past victories, you're not crossing this line. And he takes the life of many of the army that night, and then when Sennacherib returns home, he is assassinated by his own sons. Absolute cockiness, surety, confidence on the behalf of those who have achieved much. The king of Assyria had won many battles and built a huge empire. But he's not God, and he can't cross the lines that God has drawn in the sand. And he has to learn that, and Hezekiah's prayer is answered. God vindicates his name. God proves to everybody, look, all the other nations got conquered by Assyria. Their gods weren't real gods, but Assyria doesn't come here, because I am God, and I am God alone. And folks, these stories are in the Bible for us, for our encouragement. We don't always see what God is doing. We are not the covenant nation anymore, so the history of the church is different, and the church ebbs and flows in various areas as worldwide it continues to grow. We can't always understand what's happening. Sometimes it feels as though things are diminishing and things are at a low ebb. But these chapters, these stories are in Scripture to remind us that God is the sovereign Lord, that while kingdoms do come and go, it is the Lord who brings them to the top, and it's the Lord who brings them down, and all for the sake of his people and for the purpose of his glory. And so we can be reassured in the confusion of today and the concerns about what's going on in our world, that God is in control and he will win out in the day. There is only one true and living God. But I think we have a helpful example here, don't we, from Hezekiah, as he receives this ridicule from Sennacherib, from the superpower of the day. He goes and lays it before the Lord and pleads that the Lord, who is the Creator God, would glorify his name in this situation. And that's such a helpful prayer for us to be praying. That's a helpful practice for us to be doing as we face difficulties and problems to come and bring them and lay them before the Lord. Reminding ourselves who he is and seeking to ask him to glorify his name in the situations that we face. We're going to listen to a song based on Psalm 139, a reminder that God knows all that's going on. We can't escape from him, and that he searches the hearts of all, and the wicked will face God's judgment. But as his children, we can know great encouragement from this.